Hi, I'm Maria from BKB Quantum Youth, and today I'm going to present the 6th episode of our series in the quantum industry. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different, it's going to be a little bit longer, because I'm going to show you how to contribute to your first ever open source project. In our previous episode, I walked you through what quantum open source is, how to contribute to it generally, what type of projects exist, what type of hackathons are available at the moment, and today I'm actually going to walk with you step by step on how to actively start. So one of the most important things in open source is being familiar with GitHub. GitHub is this platform, or this social media-ish platform, in which people who work in software development upload their code. So if there is a project that is open to everybody and available for everybody, it'll most likely than not be on GitHub. It basically looks a little bit like this. As in any other social media, you have these dashboards in which people who you're following or that are trending show up. So I have friends that work in software and they upload things, they like things, so I can see what they've been doing. I also follow certain companies or certain groups. I can see what their updates are. So in a way, it's kind of like a social media. But I can also see if people have starred things I've done. So starring is like the like in GitHub, right? So I see that somebody has started this repository. A repository is a project. There's a lot of lingo here. I'm going to repeat myself a lot in this lingo. I'm going to re-describe it a lot just so you become very familiar with it. It's not hard. It's just a lot of info at once. So don't feel intimidated. But basically, you have repositories, which are projects in GitHub, and people can like them. So they give you a star when they like them. You also have basically a profile. So if we go check out my profile, you can see my bio, how I have self-described myself, some of the projects that I'm most proud of or that I want people to check out when they come into my profile. And then you can also see basically a time lapse of my contributions to my own projects and other projects in GitHub. So I initially got GitHub back in October 2020. On the 28th of October 2020, and since then I've been slowly contributing to things and creating my own projects. I actually started doing proper open source in 2022, so you can see here the first few projects I contributed that year, and then you can check everything up to this year. And you can also see like a contribution activity rundown of the things I've done in the past few months. Over here, you can also see my repositories. So I have 88 repositories. A lot of these are private, simply because you can decide to make some of your projects private or public. I usually make my projects public, but especially when I'm working with university things, they're mostly private unless I have been given permission to make them public and they're finished. But you will, if you go into my account, you'll be able to see the repositories. It just might not say 88, it might say less. And I also have basically repositories that have star, repositories that I have liked. A bit with that, it's a bit similar to YouTube, where you can like a video, but then you can also like save it within a list. So I have lists of repositories that are associated to topics I'm interested in. And yeah, this is pretty much what GitHub looks like. You can search for any project in GitHub. So one thing that you need to be very careful about is when you search in GitHub, make sure that something like this doesn't show up. I always confuse myself when I start searching things in GitHub and nothing shows up. And this is basically, right now, I'm searching for things that are owned by me. So if I search for a big quantum software like Qiskit, right? I'm just going to see anything that has the word Qiskit in it that belongs to me, which isn't the official Qiskit folder. But if I delete that bit and I just write Qiskit, I'll be able to see every piece of software and every project that has the word Qiskit in it in all of GitHub, which is a lot. Like there's 371,000 1,000 pieces of code that's shown up, 4,000 repositories, so 4,000 projects, and like 137 users that have shown up. But a bit with like other social medias, it goes by popularity. So the first thing that shows up is probably the right thing. And in this case, it's Qiskit by Qiskit. So this is what we mean when we say like, hey, this project is open source. It's that if I search it up in GitHub, right, I can find a folder with absolutely everything related to this piece of code. If I download this and install it from this file, I'll be able to run Qiskit without never running pip install Qiskit, if that makes sense. So like I can go into any file here and check out the code folder by folder. So I can go check out like the circuits and see how the barriers in Qiskit are defined within this Python package, right? Or this whatever package. I can also see quite a lot of stats. So I have a brief description here called about. I am associated to a web page. There's some tags. So it's written in Python. It's quantum code. It's related to quantum computing. It's had 115 releases, and right now we're in version 1.0.2. It's used by 4,000 people. It has over 500 contributors. These are the languages and how they're distributed. So 95% of Qiskit is on Python, but then it also has like 3.5% written in Rust. I can see folder by folder and file by file when they have been last modified. I have this thing called a README, which is basically like a big bio description of the project that tells me like the releases it's had. It describes how to install it, how to run your first program. Then I also have a code of conduct. So this is less common for smaller projects, but can be a thing, where they just tell you what are the important things that you need to follow, what are the rules to contribute to this project. And you even have a list of issues, so of problems that people can solve. And this is where you come in as somebody working in open source. You actually choose a project, any project, that is related to one of these issues and start working on it. That's pretty much how it works. You can check anything that's open. You can check them by labels, so you can check all the bugs, or you can go, hey, I want to work in a bug, but I'm very new, so I want to check something that's a good first issue for somebody, for a beginner. So you'll get a list of every problem, every issue that is in this software package that is recommended for beginners, but that is also a bug. Or maybe you don't want bug, maybe you don't mind what type of work you're working in, and you have the entire list. Maybe you want to work in documentation or other stuff. But this is what I mean. You have like a very set list of things you can work in, and if you click into them, you have a description of what's happening, how you can reproduce the issue, what should happen, suggestions, any conversations that people have had around these topics. So it's a great way of like kind of keeping track of a project, especially such a big project like Qiskit. And what we're going to do is going to see how you can actually participate in these conversations and participate in this creation of code, right? So what we're going to do first is I'm going to sign out, and we're going to create our own GitHub. So BKB Quantum Youth has this official email. Feel free to email us anytime with your questions and topics that you want us to make videos in. So I'm going to create the official BKB Quantum Youth GitHub with you guys today. So BKB Quantum Youth at gmail.com. There you go. Thank you, Apple. We'll use this as a strong password, and let's put in a username. Ooh, yeah, Quantum Youth. Okay, so this username seems to be unavailable, so I'm just going to take that away and just put it at the bottom. There we go. That one's available, so we're going to continue. We don't really want emails, so we're going to ignore that. I think we now just need to verify that we're real. Yeah, there we go. Okay, we're not a robot, or at least we don't think we're a robot. There we go. Yeah, we're gonna update this password, and now we'll just get a code into our email and we'll be set. It's very straightforward. It's very similar to what you would get in creating any other account in a social media. So there we go. Because this is an account that's going to be used by our team members, I'm going to say we're 2 to 5. But if you're creating a personal account, just feel free to say you're one person. And then we're a group of students, so I'm going to say we're students. You can tell them a little bit of information on how you're going to use GitHub. I don't think it's necessary, so I'm just going to skip that. And then if you're a student, you'll get offered something called the GitHub Student Developer Pack and GitHub Pro. They are incredible. You have more memory, you have to store all your code, you have access to quite a lot of free software. You get things like GitHub Copilot for free, which is absolutely incredible, especially if you use Visual Studio Code. It's basically this AI that like fills in the code for you, especially with like very simple things like how to print in Python. And if you're somebody like me who constantly forgets those little details, it's absolutely great. I will recommend it. So if you're a student, do go through this, but I'm just going to get the free version. So yeah, we're done. We have a GitHub account. It was very easy. We have a dashboard. Obviously, we don't follow anybody yet. So our dashboard only has kind of tips on what are the first things we can do. So here it teaches us how to like create that bio that we saw on my account, and here how to create our first project, so our first repository. It also has some instructions on like what GitHub Copilot might be and how you might be able to use it, and then just some trends, a video on how to get started. Definitely worth exploring if it's your first time touching this. But let me show you how the profile should look. So yeah, we have this standard image here that doesn't really have anything. We can change this, and we have our birth date and the year of our birth date, and that's kind of it. As the time passes, this will start getting populated with any contribution we've done, but for now we don't have any public repositories. It's completely empty, 0. And we can search anything we want. We can go back and search Quiskit again, and we'll be able to find it the exact same way I was able to find it in my account, right? It's all public, it's all available to everybody. So in order to contribute to a project, we've already discussed this idea of issues. I'm not going to go through a contribution that involves code, because obviously different people have learned different languages, and I think that's just an additional level of complication that isn't necessary here. I'm going to show you how to contribute to a project that doesn't have any code involved. So I have this project that's basically a compilation of every single piece or every single paper that I have ever read. It's basically supposed to be a repository that allows people to kind of visualize what type of papers people my age or people who are working in this field at my level might be reading throughout an academic year. It's definitely a little bit advanced for beginners, so I wouldn't recommend it if you're just very new to quantum technologies. But if you already kind of have a general idea, have done introductory courses, maybe have done quantum mechanics in university, it's definitely a good place to start, because it just shows you an example of what type of things somebody might be reading, and maybe it's a good thing to follow if you want to have a place on which to pull papers. So it's one of my pinned repositories, but you can also find it through my actual repository. So here's what I told you before of being public or private. You'll only be able to see any project that I made public. So it's my most popular repository, so it'll show up at the top. And here it is. So it's basically just a folder full of papers. And at the very bottom, kind of like with the Quiskit repository, there's a description. So I just say what topics are covered and have the name of the paper and the link. When there's a good amount of authors, I add those in. I basically have them organized by these things called branches. So branches are usually used for versions of code. But because this project is not code, what I do is I basically just classify it per academic years. So my main branch has all the papers that I've read in the past 3 academic years, but then my 2021-22 branch only has those papers, and it kind of just works like this. You can see people who have already contributed to it, how many people are watching, how many starts it's got, so how many likes it's got. And then you can also see the issues. So in smaller projects, you'll have less issues than you'll get, for example, in Quiskit. So here we only have 2 issues. I have an issue that's basically organizing papers per topic. So if somebody wants to spend time and actually organize all these papers per topic, I think it'd be great for users. I don't have the time to do that right now. So that's kind of what open source is. It's just saying, hey, I don't have the time to do this, but I think it's important. I think it should be done. Could you help us? That's what it is. You're just contributing to open software. And then I have another issue, which I think is what most people should participate in this project as, and it's the external paper contributions. It's issue number 9. And it basically just describes on how to do it. And it's pretty much just saying, hey, if you have any paper that you think is really interesting, that you think is really key, that is not in my main branch, just upload it to the recommended reads branch. I'll just showcase it as something that people have recommended you should read, and just make sure you follow the format that I do with my other papers, and I would love to add them. So I've already had a few people who have added papers to this. You can see the discussions and kind of the rules, but this is the issue that we're going to try to tackle. So the first thing that you need to do when you contribute to an open source project is to copy the project. You need to make like a local version of this project that you have and that you own and that you're going to manipulate. Why? Because you're simply not going to be allowed to add a file to somebody else's project. If I try to like create a file here right now, it's just not going to let me do it because it doesn't belong to me. It's not my project, right? So let me put myself in the corner again. What we're going to do first is we're going to fork it. We're just going to copy it. So you can see here that 38 people have already copied this project. This is very common on GitHub. I'm just going to press on it, and now I'm basically the new owner of the project, and the project is called the same way as the other project, as the original project. It has the same description, and there I have something called copy the main branch only. So if we go back to the description of the issue, right here, I very clearly stated that I would like you to add it to the recommended reads branch, not to the main branch. So if I go back to code, there's different branches here. There's a main branch, and then there's a recommended reads branch. So this is where reading the documentation comes in, right? It's really important that when you contribute to an issue, you've read it properly. Some issues might have quite a lot of details, others might not. And then there's also documentation that's available in certain projects that has like pretty detailed descriptions on how you should contribute to these projects. So these bios are very important to read, not in this project necessarily, because in this project, they're just like a list of things. But in other projects, they might contain information on how to contribute. They might have codes of conduct that are important to follow. So just be aware of what you're contributing to, read the documentation, be aware of what you're doing before you start working on it, because if not, you'll just have to do a lot of back and forth, right? Which is probably going to be what your first experience looks like. But if you don't want to be frustrated with it, just try to learn from your mistakes. So if we had just forked this repository straight away and hadn't like actually read through it, we would have only copied the main branch, which we don't want to be working in anyway. So I'm going to take that away, and I'm going to create my fork. And now I basically have my own personal version of this repository that belongs to me, that is manipulated by me. So it is forked from this, but now I'm working in my version. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the recommended reads branch, which is what the instructions told me to do, and I'm going to contribute a paper to it. So I've decided I'm going to contribute this paper here. So let me just show you this paper, which I've read lately, so I might as well just add it as our example. It's called Quantum Neural Networks, and these are the authors. Actually, sorry. Is it? No. My bad. That is not the author. It's just this person's master's thesis. So I am going to upload the file. So I'm going to choose the file. I'm going to upload it here. I can, so when I upload something or when I change something in an existing file, which I'm going to show you how to do now, and I save it, I commit it. I commit to the change. So commits usually have a title, and then they have a description. It kind of depends on how the project works. And again, this is when reading documentation comes in, right? You need to kind of know how the lingo of the specific project works. And it can be quite annoying, but it's very easy once you're accustomed to a specific project. In this case, I don't really mind. I'm probably just going to go with Quantum Neural Networks, like the title. And then I'm just going to say contribution video BKB. And I'm going to commit it directly to this branch. I can create a new branch. So this is when branches come in as version controls, right? I said previously that, like, obviously with software, you're going to have various versions of a specific piece of software because there's improvements made to this software, right? So a lot of people use branches as the different versions. So when you create a new commit, especially if you've changed something really big, you're going to create a new version of the software because it now has new capability or it now has bugs that have been fixed, right? But in this project, we're not doing that. So we're just going to commit it to the branch. And we can do the same with just creating our own personal file, or we can change an existing file. So in this case, I can change the description and I can add a new paper. So I can say something like our new paper / authors, and then link, right? This is obviously not, this is obviously not going to get accepted because I don't actually have the title of the paper or the authors or the link. But if I did, I would put those in, and then just moving again, just commit the change and it'll work the exact same way. And when you're working with the README, so those are the bios, the update README description comes in. Sometimes that's relevant. Description, we're just going to say test. We don't have to put a description, that's not mandatory. I'm pretty sure the commit message, so the title of the commit, is mandatory. We're going to commit the changes the exact same way. And now when we go into a repository, it's going to say that we are 2 commits ahead of our origin, so our original thing that we forked from. If we go into our actual account, this repository is going to be there, right? So here we can see our first contributions. We've created a repository, so now we have a contribution activity that's not just at join GitHub. Our repository is here. People can see basically line by line what changes we've done. Because if I click into basically the commits that I've done, I can see that I have certain commits that may have happened. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong branch. I was wondering what was going on. If I go to the right branch, I can see I have 2 new commits that I've done. I can click into a specific commit and see line by line, hey, these are the things that a person has added. Or if I deleted a line, it appears in red and you see the line that has been deleted. But yeah, you can very visually see all the things that have been changed in a project. So I go here and I go to recommended reads. Here we are, 2 commits ahead. Actually, I can see like grouped commits, so I can see visually what I have changed through multiple commits in comparison to my origin. So I can see that in these 2 commits, there's been 1 contributor and there's been 2 files changed. These 2 files have been changed. In this one, I've just uploaded something, so it's not going to show it to me. But in this one, I can like very clearly see what I've added, right? And what we're going to do right now is we're going to push this. So there's these words pull and push in Git. Pull basically means I'm pulling the data, I'm pulling the repository, I'm pulling the information, I'm pulling it towards me. I'm just pushing it towards like the origin, right? So we're going to create a pull request that's going to like push our new changes, our new commits into the origin. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to create a pull request. So we're going to do this compare and pull request. And basically what we're doing is comparing the base repository, MGG39 Quantum Tech Papers, with this specific branch to our repository, Quantum Youth Quantum Tech Papers, with this branch. Obviously, this can change. Maybe you want to commit to my main branch. Maybe you want to compare it to my 2021-2022 branch. If you're working with different branches, there's a good chance some errors show up. Sometimes those are fine, sometimes they're not. You just need to know what type of code you're working with. So if you want to contribute to a project, you obviously need to be like aware of what the project is and how it works. So there's a lot of work that goes in before you can actually work on open source projects. There's a lot of background reading, there's a lot of background understanding. This is not a software project, so it's obviously much easier. I'm just showing you the steps on how to virtually do it, but you need to understand the project you're working in, the coding language you're working in, and what type of change you're trying to implement before starting any of this, really. So yeah, I can create a title, so I'm just going to put test for video, and I'm going to say hi as my description, which is absolutely terrible. Please actually describe what you're doing. And here I'm just allowing maintainers to edit. That's usually a good thing to do. And I'm going to create my pull request. So now I have this pull request that has the addition of the new paper and the update. It has no conflicts. So this is when I set errors, I'm in conflicts, right? Because we already know that issues are like the problems in the code that you can contribute to. They're basically like the tasks that are available. Conflicts are like the problems that whatever you've created might have with the original source. So for example, if you're working between branches or if the type of code you're implementing doesn't follow the rules, there might be conflicts. So here I can continue the conversation. I can add more messages with more details if I want to. The other person who's on the other side can respond, and they're the ones who decide wherever they actually will accept this pull request or not. So you don't have to do anything once you push it. You just have to wait to hear a reply. You should make sure you're subscribed, because if you're subscribed, you'll get emails every single time somebody says something about this. And given that it's your pull request, you probably want to know when people respond, and you don't want to be checking it all the time. You can also close your pull request. So if you decide that your change doesn't work, if it's not relevant, or if it's for whatever reason, you can just close it and just say, hey, I want to close it, and just close it with comment instead of just commenting. Okay, so I'm going to get out of this account now and show you how your contribution looks like from the other side, just so you're aware of how it looks like and what the other person sees. So I'm going to sign in with my account right now. I have, there's something called GitHub Mobile, which basically is just like a little app, and you can get verification for your accounts there. And yeah, here we are, we're back in my account. This is what the person on the other side will see, not you. And here in my homepage, in my feed, I basically get, hey, somebody has forked your repository, nice. It's not straight away, but I'll probably get an email saying that somebody has created a new pull request and has started all this conversation. But here I can see your fork. I can see, I can see the fork. And if I go back to my original repository, I now have a new pull request. So there's two pull requests, and one of them was opened 2 minutes ago by Quantum Youth BQB. And if I click on it, I can see everything you've written. So I can see hi, I can see the hello, I can see the changes, I can see it by minutes, and I can merge it if I consider that whatever has been proposed is appropriate. That's rarely, you're very rarely going to get changes merged right away. You're probably going to have a little conversation. The person may ask you for more details, or may ask you to change certain things, or may ask you make sure that certain things have been filled. So for example, if you're contributing to a company software, they might ask you to sign a contract just saying, hey, whatever I've written, I don't expect money for it, or I follow the rules, I've been respectful to everybody I've talked to, or I'm going to be respectful with anybody I talked to before I continue this conversation. You know, it's nothing important. You're not selling your soul. Make sure you read it, obviously, but you might have a little conversation about the changes, or the changes that might still need to happen, or maybe you have a question or they have a question, right? So they might be able to assign a reviewer. So obviously, because this is a project that's only maintained by me, I can be the only reviewer. I can assign you the work. I can add labels here. So in this case, none of the labels are relevant because this is not a software project. But if you were fixing a bug, or if it was a good first issue, I suppose it's a good first issue, I would add that. I can add connected to a project. So this specific repository doesn't have projects. I'm going to show you what projects are in a second. They're really useful if you're maintaining your own project. So the cool thing with GitHub is that you can maintain your own repositories and create your own software that can be maintained and contributed by other people. You can create a community around this, right? Same for milestone. If you have a project, you can also have milestones associated to that. And you can subscribe or unsubscribe. But yeah, this is pretty much how it looks like. I'm going to not accept this simply because it doesn't follow the rules. It doesn't have the title. Obviously, nobody would just reject you. They would tell you why. If you are taking a few days, they might put this pull request in a sleep mode that basically just says it's incompleted. When you complete it, just reopen it. But they'll tell you, people are really nice. The lingo that they use and the rules that they use might be very intimidating at first for new users, but everybody wants to help, everybody wants to be helped, and they just want to make sure that everything is compatible and everything works. And when somebody comes back to this in 2 years' time, they can read it and understand it because they understand the rules of the game, right? So I'm not going to merge that pull request. I'm just going to close it. And now if I go into pull request, I have the other pull request that's open, but I now have the list of closed pull requests that you can see here. There's also discussion forums that can exist in certain projects. So you can see conversations here. there might be actions or projects, as I mentioned before. So I don't have any projects here, but I do have general projects that I'm not using at the moment. So if I go here and I go into my projects, I can show you, this is my final year project that we haven't been using in months. I might as well show you. You can basically create things that you can move. So they can be in done, in progress, in to do, and well, I'll delete this test and recreate it to show you. Delete. I can create an item, so test. Right now it's in draft mode, but I can convert it into an issue and associate it to a project. So it can be like you can visualize all your project like this and see what's to do, what's in progress, and what's done through the project that you have. And if you go in, you can like convert it into an issue. And once you convert it into an issue and associate it with one of your repositories, so I'm going to associate it with this repository, you can like create a description and basically have the same thing we were seeing before, but here. So I'm going to close this issue because it's not a real issue. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And this is what a project is. So GitHub has a lot of these little functionalities that are really fun to look around, and I definitely recommend you check out. But now if I check out Quantum USB here, I can see their profile. I can see that they've done their contribution, they have a repository, and they've done their first ever open source contribution. It got rejected, but that's the nature of open source. They've still started contributing and participating, and that's absolutely great. They've gotten their first pull request. They should have done it 2 minutes ago. And yeah, I hope this is useful. I would definitely recommend that if you're working on these projects, you check out Visual Studio Code. It's a very good platform that enables you to work with different coding languages and pull and push and commit and all these things in the same interface. You don't have to go project by project and like modify documents there by copy pasting or by uploading. It's a little bit easier to interface with and just more manipulative, but there's quite a lot of YouTube videos around it. So just become familiar with GitHub first and then move into using it with other things, so you can interface it with things like Visual Studio Code or MATLAB and basically just push and pull from your command line instead of having to do this all manually. But all things considered, this is a great way to start contributing. The way I started contributing to projects was by this hackathon called the Unitary Hack. So Unitary Hack is a hackathon that's run by the Unitary Fund. Okay, I don't know why that shows up. Unitary Hack 2024 maybe? There you go. Unitary Hack 2024. It's this big hackathon in which basically some issues in some of the participating projects become bounties, and if you're the first person to solve them within the time frame of the hackathon, you get a prize, like a monetary prize. So you can make money out of open source. And basically there's this big list of all the open source projects that are participating on it, which is a great list for you to check out and to start just actively participating in these projects inside or outside of hackathons. So for example, they have QuizKit, they have PennyLane, they have very big projects, but they have maybe slightly smaller projects like KuCrack that you might not be familiar with. So you just have to click on it, you have a description, and then if you click on it again, it'll show you directly into the repository and like tell you about it. It'll show you all the files, it'll give you the description, and you can go into the issues that might be open and search through there. So right now here you see good first issue, help wanted. You can just click into that and learn about the problem, see the conversations that have been done around it, or ask any questions and start contributing to it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Good luck, and I hope this was helpful. Please feel free to like have any questions, put any questions that you might have into the comments or email us.